Welcome back, everybody, to the Colour Authority podcast. Today's going to be one exciting episode because I'm going to be talking to David Shah. Now, David Shah is publisher at Metropolitan Publishing from the magazines that you probably all know, Textile View, Viewpoint Colour, PantoneView Colour Planner, and many more. He is and has been a consultant working on design and marketing developments with many leading apparel and industrial companies, ranging from fashion to automotive. He's renowned for his speeches around the world on social and design trends. And for those of you who've ever seen David speak, you know what I'm talking about. David has been visiting professor at the Royal College of Arts, London, examining MA students in textiles, as well as associate professor at ARTez, Arnhem in the Netherlands, for the course on branding and marketing. He's also associate professor at Renmin University in Beijing, China. He's a peer member for the CBI Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands and is often called as an expert witness in legal matters. Good morning, David Shah. Welcome to the Colour Authority. How are you today?
Judith, lovely to see you, and very lovely that you got something called the Colour Authority. Funny title, actually, because when I was a young man, I was publishing international textiles, and that was in the sort of late 70s, early 80s. We had a thing called the International Colour Authority. So I'm very emotionally behind you on your Colour Authority.
We've met a couple of years ago. You've always been super inspiring, and I know you inspire many people and color professionals out there. You know, what I wanted to talk to you about today are a number of things. But the very first thing that I always ask everybody on my podcast is, what is color? So what is color to you, David?
Well, actually, I came to colour quite late, sort of my career. I never intended to get into colour or fashion at all. I studied classics at university, and I really wanted to be an archaeologist. Actually, I wanted to specialise in the Praetorian Guard, all those buddy boys in Gladiator and all the rest of it. And my parents were very lovely middle-class people, doctor and all the rest of it. So no, I was the only guy to get a job in my year at university. And I was looking at it, and I sort of went for an interview at Courtaulds, and the first interview was all about wine and Bach and travel, and I thought I was joining the Courtaulds Institute of Art, and I was really excited. Then I found out it was a textile company making cortel and viscose and you name it. So that is how I got into it, and then from there I kind of went into the journalistic side of it. And suddenly I discovered something I knew nothing about at all, really came from nowhere. But I found it absolutely fascinating because it really appealed to me. And I'm very much I like business a lot. I love reading The Economist, and I think business is really important to understanding what's happening in trends. And I love creativity. I always wanted to be a painter until I realized I'd be better buying paintings than making paintings. But it appealed to me. Textiles appeals to me. Also, the people who work in textiles and colour are highly creative people, unlike fashion. They are truly believing in what they're doing and really investing their time and belief in it. And it actually, I fell in love with the whole subject, and I really enjoy it. And colour, then I sort of, I was never really a colour expert. As I said to you, I was sort of editing. I've always been a Mycenas, editing things. And I was editing the International Colour Authority when I was with International Textiles in those days. And then, of course, now a very strong relationship with Pantone. We published together the PantoneView Colour Planner and then the Pantone Institute Colour. So we're very close to that. And my first real tangibility with colour is when I launched a magazine, Viewpoint Colour, with Lee Adelcourt and Anton Bake in 1990. And this was a highly emotional, as well, really strong moment. And the magazine was a huge hit. And we had the first green cover in 1990. It was all about green. It was a green hand. And, Anton Bake designed it. And one of my first jobs was to go and interview, one of my first tasks on it was to go and interview chromotherapists. And this was in Madrid. And I remember it's a really rainy day. And then I went to this beautiful apartment in a sort of top floor, one of his 1920s, like beautiful wooden floor. And I remember walking in the hall and I suddenly had this rush of sex. I really wanted to have sex. And so, I don't know what it was. And then these lovely people came up. They must have been in the late 60s or early to late 60s. And we started doing the chromotherapy test to decide what color I was. And I never thought about what color. Well, actually, I did. I was blue. I was absolutely, everything I wear is blue. Everything I love is blue. I used to sleep in blue sheets.
I remember.
All my curtains were blue velvet, blue. And we did this sort of thing by leverage, your arm, sort of levering your arm, and color filters on this light box. And so we'd hold my arm over his light. So we had red and my arm went down. And then we had green and my arm went down. And then we had blue. So I was really ready for this to be my color. My arm went down. I was so shocked. My color was yellow. And I hate yellow. I was really heartbroken to find I was yellow, but I should wear yellow all the time next to me. And it's, as you know, it's all from the chakras. So, green for the lungs and yellow is the stomach, which apparently is also not, well, I am a very sort of, Taurian luxury guy, but it's also about creativity as well, and in all different areas. But the sex came into it, you see, because the color of sex is orange. And my two hosts, who were like my age now, who were in the early 60s, were both orange, and their aura, and they'd met at this kind of festival. And sort of, I don't know if they had sex straight away, but they certainly fell in love straight away. And it was it was them. They were sort of all over each other. And so anyway, that's my experience with color.
So, but why do you actually don't like yellow?
I love the energy of yellow, and I love the sense of the sun. I love the sun. I love to be surrounded by the sun, and I feel very happy in the sun. But it just doesn't, it attacks me. Blue, I know it's the most popular color in the world, blue. Everybody loves blue in all its dimensions. But I love blue. I think I fell in love with blue when I sort of tried to be trendy, in the early 80s, and sort of Japanese all appeared. And we were all rushing off to Place de Victoire in Paris to get our yoji. And it was all like this Japanese blue, black, and all the rest of it. And I think also my first school uniform was blue and black. It's just that it kind of hurts me, yellow. It doesn't, I'm a very romantic person, and sort of, I'm not sentimental, but very romantic. And yellow is not a romantic color. But I do love daffodils. My favorite flower are daffodils. So my wife has promised to sort of sprinkle me over a daffodil bed.
Oh, back to that, you just explain a little bit, very, very small details about your career and how you ended up where you did. You studied classics, you started with textiles and fashion, and you just told us how you ended up there. But how do you now, because you still work in this industry, you're known as a trend expert, but you still, it's your passion.
You're not allowed to use the word trend anymore. It's not it's not the right word. I don't know why, because people still need directions.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yeah. How did you end up there? But also how is this passion of yours continuing, and how do you feel it has shaped you?
As I said, I was very lucky because when I started in textiles, there were trends, but they were all kind of made by very sort of clever publishers in New York here and there and all the rest of it, who would sort of stand their people or have their people in Europe reporting on what the shops were doing for all their buyers in America. So it was all about, instead of having to travel to sort of see what's happening in Europe, they would do shop reports and all the rest of it. And the first textile show I went to was Interstoff. So I don't know how many of your listeners will remember Interstoff, but I remember Interstoff because I think I was the only person, I was such an idiot, I was so young, that actually worked there. Everybody else was going off to parties or falling in bed with somebody else. I don't know, but we were, drinking. But I was actually looking at textiles. And I suddenly found this way of putting textiles together in groups, well, that looks like something I've seen. Because there was no trends. You just go from stand to stand to stand, and suddenly there was this kind of zeitgeist in the air that things are happening. And then, of course, luckily, when I went to International Textiles, I ran into two wonderful people, Nelly Rodi and Lee Edelcourt. We started to and at the same time, we were all going down the same direction, CIM in Paris, Compagnie Industrie Mode, with Lee and Nelly. And then we're trying to push trend directions. And I always went to the first Première Vision, and of course, Lee with Première Vision, and suddenly trend became the way of looking at things. It was easy for me. I've always sort of found it very interesting to follow groups. And then, as you know, I talk a lot, and then somebody asked me to start giving speeches. That was terrible to me. I had like 6 pages of notes. And I'd read out, and oh my God, if I look at that, I go. But I spoke with some wonderful people like Paul Smith, and suddenly I just started doing speeches. And I wanted to be an actor, you see, deep in my heart. My biggest dream, what I think I should have done, I would love to be in a TV presenter like you, interview people. I would have loved that, just to sit there and say, hi, Judith, tell me about your home, what you're doing, and all that kind of sort of smarmy stuff. I would have liked that. The speech making kind of came easy. And then in speech making, with the combination of looking for trends and the talking, went to a lot of research. And I think having done quite an academic life enabled me to research quite well. And I find the whole trend game a bit of a smoke and mirrors story, actually. I mean, everybody go, oh my God, guru. I get so bad. It's not true at all. I'm not a guru. I am not a seer who can tell the future like, these sort of famous people in Roman Greece oracles. I'm very much feet on the ground, and I make a lot of clothes, and I slop them around the high street in London to Topshop and all the rest of them, 20 years ago. So I know what it's like to work in centres. I'm very much feet in the mud, not sort of head in the sky. It's really, trends is really about keeping your eyes open. It is circular, watching what went before will always come back. It is a lot of reading. I read very, very serious financial things a lot. I find finance very important. So The Economist has always been one of my favorite reads. And of course, lately now you've got a lot of style sections. I like Vanessa Friedman very much in the New York Times. It's also about travel. And above all, the thing about trends is who talks loudest, who has the most influence.
True.
And, if you're Zara with 670 shop windows, you don't need trends. 80% of decision-making by the ordinary consumer is basically either what they see their friends wearing, which is the biggest thing, of course, what you're wearing. Oh, where did you get that? And number two is window dressing. Okay, so the more clout you've got, and because I had the magazines and all the rest of it, I was able to shout quite loud. Because I always say to people, you're probably, I say to somebody, you're probably much, much cleverer than me and much more sensitive about colour than me. But unless you've got the megaphone to tell the world.
Yeah. But also connecting the dots, right? A lot of people, they probably have their feelers out as well, but then the story building, getting all the statistics right, getting all the background research. I mean, we're both in the field. It's a lot of work. It's a job per se. It's not for everyone. The designers who are working on their daily garments, for example, or on the products, they don't have time for this. I mean, they need to produce, and they like, I think, direction, as you said, input to get inspired, because that's what you do with your speeches, right?
Well, I think the thing that's changed, Judith, is in the beginning, when all these sort of, institutes of fashion, each country had one, and they had their sort of doyen and their princesses, would say, it's going to be camouflage. I remember like Out of Africa, remember the film? When it was everybody was going around in a safari. That was the time when really you could stand up and say, the trend is this, and it would follow. And of course, we can't do that today because we're living in a very, very fragmented market with a lot of individuality, although not as much as people rap on about. I think a lot of people are still very, very insecure. The thing that I find now is you have to give everybody a reason why.
Yep, true.
Why is pink still so popular after 5 years? Will red win another season? You talk about yellow, and we've talked about yellow a lot. Yes, yellow. But I still see orange everywhere. With Pantone, we did a PantoneView Colour Planner, which I think probably the biggest selling colour card in the commercial market, is, we make 64 colours. But the question always everybody asks, David, can you reduce that to 12 colours? Because merchandising colour, it's one thing to say, yes, the colour is going to be this direction. Yes, it's going to be this, Is it going to be violet? Is it going to be lilac? Or how did you get to Very Perry as colour of the year? All this kind of story. But you've got to sort of give them the logic. Where does it come from? Why? How does it work? And how do I merchandise it?
They won't take it for granted anymore when you say it's very...
No, you've got to give them a very good reason.
Talking indeed about the crisis, which whether we're going to get out of it or not, it's just going to get worse by probably other external factors that are happening currently on the political field. But how do you feel the crisis has changed this trend direction, and how has it changed colour?
Well, first of all, we need to talk about the market. I've just come back from Milan and Pitti, Villati, and Paris, of course, and next week, like you, maybe see Milan, at Philo. So all the shows are back on again. And there is really, really a very positive vibe. People want to get going again. They want it to happen. They want it to be. But at the same time, people are not quite sure what to do or where to go. They just want it all to happen. COVID had a lot of predictions. I remember the one prediction, everyone was, we're all going to be green and green platforms, we're going to be community, throw out all our stuff. And I remember, nobody would be hugging anymore, which I think is a load of rubbish, because I think the first thing people were doing was hugging again. And we won't have birthday parties because blowing out candles is bad exhalation of air. I mean, there was a lot of prediction, a lot of crap, but some of it was true. And the parts which were true, of course, was how we deal with it. So, if I look back May last year, we were all partying in the streets, and it was all great, and the fashion business was doing well. Suddenly, it was a huge, all the Keirings and the Louis Vuittons and all that, and were doing huge business, booming again, and Hennes and Mauritz and Zara and all the fast fashion were doing very, up to Black Friday, up to October, November, when people were doing their early Christmas shopping, things were booming, and it was going in a very clear direction, which the COVID did accelerate. And the three things that COVID really accelerated was, yes, omni-channel shopping, of course, the internet, but not only the internet, sort of TV, cross-channel shopping, the move from fashion to interior. Everybody went to the home, and you couldn't move to Home Depot. Everybody was decorating their home. And I find it fascinating that IKEA has now opened where Topshop was, on that corner of Oxford Street. So it just shows you that, the home business, and a lot of fashion people have actually migrated their interests into interior decorating and home. So really the home, and I think the home will continue to capture the interest more than fashion. And as I say, live commerce, all different ways of thinking. And the biggest thing, it really cleared the mind about who is shopping. Because when all the paychecks were going out and people were subsidized by their local governments, everybody was shopping. But as soon as that kind of point, it was the young and the rich. And that was simply only the two sections who were shopping. And this thing has exacerbated the feeling about the youth and the older. The kids blame us for this mess, and they're really upset that we got our vaccines first so we could travel first. So all the old people got to live longer when they were a pain anyway. When I look at the Tiffany's mentality, I find it absolutely fascinating. But they would actually say, not your mother's Tiffany, to sell Tiffany today. But when you see the Beyonce advert, they're still doing Moon River. It's this whole thing about old and young, it was very strong. And then we had the Omicron, which put us back. So now, as you know, you're in Italy, it's get on, put up, shut up, and get on with it. And we don't care if 50%, 70% of Europeans get, the virus. We're going to put up with it, and we're just going to get on with it. And it's getting very tough for those countries who want to sort of do a zero policy to enforce it. And, you saw what happened in Ottawa and what happened in Paris last weekend. Again, all this freedom convoys everywhere. So what is on everybody's mind at the moment is not the fashion, it's the economy, the money. What is going on? Again, it's the economy stupid. And it is, and all the big debates is democracy versus autocracy, the move to the endemic, because the move to the endemic means we're very, it's okay, but we're never sure, Judith, are you going to be ill tomorrow? Are you going to show up to work? I'm not sure if I'll be able to travel. Maybe the regulations will try. I don't know what's happening everywhere. So the endemic, unlike the pandemic, we know exactly where we're at. You're locked down in your flat with your cat. End of story, and you cannot. But now, yes, we can, but I'm not sure if So it's really sort of a lot of things. The climate. So there's a lot of things, and of course, above all, the shortage economy. Because I've been looking at the shares, and this is a really amazing problem. Whether I'm making chips for a car company or telephone company, or I'm making textiles, we have got major shortages. Yeah. Shortages caused by difficulty of harvest, insecure shipping. Really, the cost of shipping are massive. I don't want to go into this whole story. And
the color pigments that are not sufficient. I mean, imagine that for our world.
It's a real problem. So, we've got this whole crisis, a perfect storm of sort of costs, credit, cash crunches, and rapidly rising costs and supply chain woes and high debts and protectionism still. And above all, we've got inflation. And there's so much speculation. You know about colour, dye stuffs. I can tell you that everything, the hottest topic at the moment in textiles is linen. You could not move. Everybody was looking for linen. But I can tell you the 2 spinners in Europe who are making linen are sold out until November. And I don't know, because China's using its own linen and they want to buy European linen and everybody wants linen. So I don't know where it's going to go. And don't talk to me about prices because, mohair 400% increase, cashmere 70% increase. Nobody's telling me what the linen prices are going to be. Nobody can give you a price till November next year. And of course, what is a big problem is the energy, because, in textiles, however sustainable we're trying to be, a lot of our costs are energy costs. And, my own office bill went up 100% in 1 year. And some of the mills are talking to me about 400%. So we're getting a whole world, which is the big boys are getting fatter and the Amazons, the rest of it. And the smaller companies are really, going down. And what I'm worried about is although there has been a big surge back into sort of buying textiles and buying fashion and buying colour, it's not been as big as buying other things. If you look at the growth in Italian exports, very nice, 19%, we're catching up with where we were, but textiles is only 14%. So it's still lagging behind the other things. And although people are going back to the shops, it is what shops are they going back to? Who is going back to the shops? And we have been spoiled, Jude, if you know this. In the last 30 years, we could buy what we like. We just kept buying. Really, the cost of living crisis is really massive. And I can assure you, we're going to get a lot of demonstrations, a lot of unease, a lot of people questioning their lives, the micropreneur mentality. I don't want to work as an accountant. And of course, we've still got the Ukraine issue, although it looks better today. But, people don't understand. Already inflation is impossible. Already, I don't know about the cost of living. I really don't know how that's going to affect buying furniture, clothes, whatever it is. And if those gas pipelines shut down, which they certainly will if there is an invasion, we're in real trouble. What really the pandemic did is usher out I'm very disappointed in a way. I mean, I was never like that the world would change. I believe lepers don't change their spots.
But you wished for it, right? Everybody wished for it.
I don't know, because I live in a business of, we need a bottom line. We need to keep things going. Mm-hmm. And I've always had my fights about sustainability, how it's handled, not about the principles, but about who's saying what and how it's being done. And before the COVID, there was a definite feeling for smaller boys, the small guys, the Davids were taking on the Goliaths and all these independent companies and the small people. And, it was really beautiful. And we would invest in better ideas and all the rest of it. And then suddenly, there's no doubt about it that, apart from the surge in e-commerce, the consumer has moved back to A brands. They seem to trust. The bigger you are, the more I trust you. And the other thing is, that definitely back to cheaper products. And that really upsets me. I really thought this was going to happen, and it didn't. People are really going back to cheaper again. And you can see the shops which are doing well are definitely in the cheaper end, budget end of the retail.
So it's the Primarks and shops like that.
Yeah, and Sheins, we'll talk about Shein in a minute, but definitely it's groceries, it's nesting, and it's health. And it's going to stay that way, plus travel. Because if you can travel, you can bet you're sure we're all going to get on that plane to Ibiza and, party. So that's absolutely sure. So it's a bit, because if you look at what people have been wearing this winter, there was a lot of this, cottage core. Yeah. The W. Anderson story, and you can see the rust and the herringbones.
Browns,
and cottage core. And it was Gorp core. You can't move for puffer jackets. They're definitely the bigger, the fatter, I don't care how. But anyway, it is puffer, it is quilted, it is Gorp core. And I was very surprised about the return of denim. I really thought, no more skinny jeans. We're all into our lounge lizard elasticated waists. But I was surprised as soon as people were out, the jeans were out. And,
why do you think jeans are back out? Is it the blue comfort or what is it?
It was the first step. I mean, if you wanted to move out of and I still wear my sweatpants. I love them, we're talking about that. But really, I think people, denim was the first logical step into something else. I don't think they went back into skinny pants, but vintage denim, ripped denim. So there's a lot of relaxed denim.
Yeah, the bigger ones, yeah. Larger sizes.
Raw denim, relaxed denim is not the whole thing. They had a lot of nostalgia, all this preppy stuff and all this kind of, sex education, gossip girl, you name it. And all that. And the other thing, I know everybody's into beanies. Do you wear a beanie, Judith?
I wear a beanie because it's cold in Milan.
Yeah, well, you don't wear an elegant hat.
I have hats, though. I have a lot of hats. I don't wear them, though, which is silly, but I have.
Yeah, see, because beanies are comfortable, easy, and no fuss.
I know, right?
Yeah, you're never going to change, Judith. I remember in September, we had this bloody... Is this boring you, by the way?
No, it's absolutely not boring me.
All right. So I don't know how you're going to edit all this. The glamour. Vogue September across the world was all about the glamour, glamourosi, glamour, post-lockdown parties. And we had things like the return of, party tights.
Yeah. Is that where gold got back again? Because gold's been coming up and down.
The metallics have been in a long time, and that's for various reasons. Gold it's not special anymore. Gold is part of a colour. It's a colour. It's part of a yellow circle. It's not just about Lurex, inverted commas, registered trademark. It's about gold seen with naturals, gold seen in another way, not just for partying. And of course, whatever you say, the athleisure continues. I don't care. It might be off the boil.
You talked about athleisure a couple of years ago. So you think that's still there and it's still going to continue?
Yeah, I don't care what people say. It's not there. Athleisure is still very there, and it's there. And you can bet every company who used to do theorem, they're all building athleisure lines behind their retail line. Squid Games with its tracksuit, and I don't care. It's comfort, and people were very much in a hurry to get back to the gym. Gyms were the social highlight of millennial life. Everybody went to the gym to talk, to have their juices and all the rest of it. We've done our sort of home bikes and pelotons, but now let's get back to the gym. What we've got at the moment is a very difficult time because the market is looking, yes, we want to get going, but they can't afford to take risks. So they're looking at long-term merchandising, which is very important about the colour taste. So they want to choose things, colours and fabrics and materials that they can use through the season in various merchandise platforms.
Yeah, that gives certainty.
One colour, but no, it has longevity. But I can move it. I can start with shorts, but then I can drop it into trousers, or I can move, I am taking something that I can use in multi-stories at the end and last the whole season, rather than the before 3-week flash. Right. And of course, the whole thing now is moving for forever fashion, we're talking about forever fashion, which is great. And the other thing is comfort. I don't care what you say. If you look at anybody, celebrity, Zoom, you don't care what you do. We have not forgotten how comfortable it was. We all love our puffer jackets because they are just easy and we all love our cashmere shawls and throws and all the rest of it and comfort is still massive, from underwear.
Like Adidas with their whole commercial right now, right? With the sports bra. Generally, I'm not sure you've seen that. Obviously, it had a huge kickback, but it was about comfort again and making women comfortable, no matter what their sizes are, when they're doing sports.
Listen, Judith, once you've had comfort, you don't go back.
I'm not wearing heels since years.
No, I mean, I was asked at speeches, how are you wearing heels? And there are the cohorts for the rest of it. And, it's very funny talking about heels. The new in-shoe is a slipper. Everybody's into slippers at the moment, faux shearling, sluffers, slippers, whatever. Everybody's into slippers because they're comfortable and what else? Knitwear, because knitwear, especially roll neck knitwear, is easy, comfortable to wear and all the rest. So a lot of knitwear. So what you've got is absolutely a polarized color story. You've got really the gentle, responsible, neutrals, mid-tones happening, not just the beige and camels and ecru's, but these are very soft blues and the rest of it. And then on the other side, you've got the outward-facing, the danger desire part of the market, which is very, very bright. Right? So you've got really choose your side. Am I on the kind of lasting side or am I on the exuberant side?
What are those lasting colours though? What would be longevity colours? What do you think those are? When you talk about fashion generally.
Everybody plumbs for the safe. And when it's winter, it's always camel and ecru. Mm-hmm. And when it's summer, it's always, and especially since linen is there, it's going to be linen. But I've got a couple of colours that I really fancy as being very serious runners, because I really fancy brown. For summer, for winter, I really feel for brown. Even in behaviour, you've got this whole thing about, polarized behavior. You talk about, I wanted a better world, and there's still those who want a better world and will fight for a better world. I don't know I was just looking at the Michael Kors collection in New York yesterday. Of course, it was all about, being glamorous and stepping out, but he had white neutrals. He had a lot of pinks, and but he had a lot of white neutrals, and he had a lot of camel and gold. So everybody's playing it
both ways. Yeah,
both ways.
Expression and safety.
Yeah. So it's an expression about where you stand. I am on the exuberant side, stepping outside, or I am on the neutral side, calm side, or I'm on the warm side, the emotional side, all the rest of it.
That's things that sometimes change per day, a week per week, right? I mean, that's how human emotions work, and also that's how our moods work. Or you think there's people that
no, because the biggest divider at the moment is not anymore, are you vaccinated, are you non-vaccinated? It's still polar, because everything today is polarized, and the big problem for everybody is deciding what side of the pole they're on, the north or the south. It's about how risk-taking are you or how non-risk-taking you are. This risk-taking is again going to happen in color, and whatever you do, it's one side or the other. I'm the risk-taker, I'm not the risk-taker. And don't forget, it's not only the goody-goodies, there's all these billionaires and rockets and money and splashing. And Shein, I want to know, Shein, right? All these Gen Z goody two-shoes going around telling us boomers we messed it up and that the world has to be about sustainability, but they are the ones who are actually shopping at Shein. I really find it very, very strange we have this model. So on the other side, you've got you've got dopamine dressing, absolutely color-based.
Everybody did this in COVID, yeah.
Everybody, but it's not over. It's still, I want to use color to celebrate what I'm doing. You've got rainbow of color chaos, like Cezanne said. So really sort of really bright dressing, big volume out there.
Can you dress yourself happy? Now, if you wear orange, you feel better. I mean, I know I do, but you think that's really something that a lot of people are really into massively?
Well, I would like to think that, because I always look, because we were very early. I remember seeing a young woman once, I don't know how many years ago, 5 years, wearing an emerald green coat in the middle of winter, in Milan. And you're living in Milan, and there's a fashion capital.
Mine is orange.
And all you see in Milan is bloody black in the winter. I want to see more color. I am seeing more color. But in winter, I'm not seeing it as brave because of the money and the investment and the risk factor, even though the catwalk promotes red still and orange and all the rest of it, even though the new interiors of shops are no more this Scandinavian white, natural woods and all the rest of it are much more, glamorous and exuberant, and not the inglorious story for Lego, but really sort of strong. And everybody talks about this fantasy, all driven by digital dressing, and we're going to be much more fantastic. But still, I don't know. On the other side of the story, you've got the whole black story, the gothic, the goth, the dystopia core.
Yeah, making themselves invisible in the end, because black, you're not very visible when you're in black. Yeah,
it's back to black. Again, the gothic thing is very strong, and it's like the return of all these horror films. All I can see now is horror films from the 90s sort of coming back again. And of course, wherever you go, you've got Kanye and Julia, so with their black swan eye makeup. So this is the other side of it. So I keep telling you, everybody is split between two camps.
Fragmented, as you said. Colors fragmented, trends are fragmented, society is fragmented.
What I do feel, and I'm really going to make one of David's very big color predictions.
There we go.
We're looking for harmony. We're looking. First thing I said to you is like nesting, health, and food, and then travel. And so we've had this very healthy thing, and breathing properly and sleeping, and all this thing about the right hotels and spas and wellness. Everything about wellness has been big, and that wellness has moved into mindfulness. But all these apps about and this mindfulness has moved into a very healthy thing about germ phobia, which gave us a very scientific palette. This feeling for cleanliness and keep it clean and all these kind of things gave us a very feeling for very, very clinical blues and whites, very sterile. Yeah, very sterile, modernist, simple, hygienic, futuristic kind of thing.
So a lot of blues, right? A lot of blues.
No, very cool blues, very icy blues, very laboratory blues, and aqua greens. Really sort of very clean your soul. And at the same time, we had all this kind of, mental issues that suddenly mental illness became a major problem, exacerbated by the COVID. Now you've got a huge push on mental health and emotional health. And they're even talking about public places for people to sort of, like they used to have churches and places. Now you'll have an emotional bathing ground, and Apple is really sort of rolling out holistic apps, Heart Month and technology to develop depression and, recharge zones. And you even get mental health pharmacies now. So this mental health thing has been very strong and pushed a whole palette of what I call for the summer, you've got to think about it's like hippie California, sunset California, It's a bit like I'm a guru. I mean, it's really California, strong pastel colors with the skyline in the highlight. Very, very beautiful. And then you've got all this spirituality stuff, which is sort of prompting, the crystals and the horoscopes and all the rest of it, and the horoscopes and all the rest of it. A sort of feeling, this new religiosity, a feeling for mysterious purples and pinks all together. So all these things. But I want to come on to what I really feel, all around us, we've got all this meditation apps and mindful apps, and even that sex is, having a good sex life is as important as having a good well-being and mental life. So it's all about whatever you're doing, it's all about being together. The most together colour, I'm coming back to myself, not really, but it's coincidental. The colour which has been proved now to be the most calming and beneficial colour for your well-being and mental is blue.
Yeah.
I really feel very strongly that we're going to have a very big return of very, very solid, rhythmical blues, starting very much with the dark, intense, really real tones, starting with the sky, but really moving into the very blue blacks.
Navies, yeah.
And it's because blue is really we all understand it, we all rectify. So I think blue will become, because we haven't had blue. It's been
very orange, yellow, she said, the warmer tones.
Naturals, neutrals, ecros. I haven't seen blue for some time. And black, of course, we have black, but not blue. And I really feel blue. Blue, very, very strong. Sportswear, you name it, everything, clothing, furniture, blue. Very, very important. That's my first stick out. All right, prove me if I'm wrong. What do you think?
I think indeed. Well, we've talked about, being part of Colour Marketing Group, but also have done my own presentations for the next couple of years. In forecast, I think blue has been among, together with neutrals and some darker oranges, I think it is definitely something that is coming. No, I think it's exactly what we need right now. We need that. You talked about harmony.
It's solid. It's solid. Yeah. You feel grounded.
No matter what happens, if the sky is blue, it's not going to drop on you, right? It's not going to fall down. It's one of the biggest securities there is in life, unless you're, Milan is not that secure with the smog that we've got, but still. You talked about, I think we all know that, and it needs to be said, if we want to live in a more sustainable world, we just simply need to produce less and buy less. I think that's very clear, obviously, in the world that we've currently constructed. That's not possible. You talked about the bottom line before, so no way that's going to happen. But what is possible, do you think? And where do we all need to be moving? And what would those really, if you really talk about buying stuff with longevity, what color is that? What color is really the color of longevity?
3 questions. Not necessarily. Money makes the world go round. I don't care what you say. There is no escaping that horrible fact. Money makes the world go round. So we need to have a black bottom line, whatever you're doing. The question is, in today's climate, how do I, in a business which is seen as so wasteful and unnecessary and status-oriented and self-promotional, do that? And I'm very impressed to see the companies I've been watching lately are Marks and Spencer's, who were my parents' company, and Ralph Lauren, who's actually having a bit of because of the whole preppy story, a bit of a comeback. I don't know if it's also his reopening of his restaurant in New York. But anyway, And what I'm seeing is, the key is, the biggest waste in our business is sales, the markdowns. So the key is reduce your inventory. So Marks and Spencer's got rid of a lot of their cross-sectional attitude. They said, okay, we are going to concentrate. I stand for this. And they made their statement about comfort and smart comfort dressing, whether it's career wear, it's got elastic in it, it's got stretch in it, and that's what we're going to specialize in. And Ralph Lauren did thinking, let's look at how much we're buying. And then the key for them is that Marks is reducing their buy into funneling it into much more concentrated. And the other way is to reduce the markdowns at the end. We all know the big killer is, when I was selling clothes and designing clothes in a very big way, I'm doing sportswear now and athleisure wear. Before I was doing suits, huge amounts, 6 million suits a season from China. Was, the buyers, oh, David, we had a great sell-through. We sold 70%. It was like, I'm a hero. And the acceptable was like 50 to 60, and then 30 was really bad. Now you've got to move that sell-through to 85%, and that's the key, that you're not wasting all that clothing production. So that's the other part. The other part is the recycling part, post-industrial, pre-industrial, that is really improving. There's a lot of scope for new machinery there, but really everybody I talk to in the business today is committed to improving the way we use material, reuse material, recycle material. Amazing circular stories about, making flannel for one of the Henderson Marriott groups, ARTez, then bringing it back pre-production and making hangers out of the raw material and recycling it. So really all praise, because along with legislation, really these things are happening. And the other big thing which fascinates me and also has an influence on color, because all this recycling is lowering our color expectations, and the other part is vintage. When you
say lowering color expectations,
well,
you mean the quality of the color production?
No, the intensity of color. So we're looking, of course, as you know, I don't need to go into this, I'm sure so many people talked about it, natural dye stuff is the one part of the whole story, which automatically gives us sort of less perfection and a different level of color and not able to match the color. So there. And then the second part is the vintage part, where, vintage for my generation is not as easy as my daughter's generation. I mean, she's very happy to buy €12 Levi's on, museum line or Waterloo line. Vintage has got a long way to go. People keep saying, David, you're going to run out of clothes. We're not running out of clothes. We've only touched 5 to 7% of the available wardrobe. As the whole thing about vintage, prejudices about vintage disappear, the strength of vintage is uniqueness, individuality, the fun of shopping it, and all more from, Bon Marché to Gary Lafayette to Uco, every level of the retail brands, Hennes & Mauritz is doing, pre-loved clothing and second clothing. The question is, we've got to reduce the amount of money we're spending and reduce our losses and waste to make the money. But the clever brands are really sort of getting quite good at it. So they won't make the margins they used to. But having said that, because there's always yin and yang, there's always leopards that don't change their spots. There's always a Shein coming, another mega fast fashion group. There are still a lot of kids who actually want to buy fashion. And let us not judge the world by yours and my standards, Judith. The biggest mistake we make is talking to people like us. And we don't want to talk about people like us because we all talk the same language. That's how Brexit happened. That's how Trump happened. We were so confident about our own thinking that around us, we didn't see it happening. So still a lot of buying. But we've really made progress. We're all into nature and walking, hiking and all the rest of it, sustainability. I don't want to bring this up, but really we're looking at electric cars. Yeah, but what about all the lithium and cobalt? Yeah, digital, yeah, there's paper. Really? So how much energy are we putting into digital batteries? And what about Bitcoin? And all this kind of story. And everybody's talking about all this, but it's like dominoes. One solution makes another problem. I remember synthetic fibers came out in the 20s. My God, synthetics will save the world. We won't wear real fur and it will be this. So it's
easy to color as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all, everybody, and there was a survey done about public behavior in the 10 European countries, and Holland and Germany came out worst. Not because we're not, everybody cared about the climate. They cared. Oh my God, 82, yes, climate change. Well, this is interesting. When they asked them, say, yeah, we're good. We do it. the community is not so good. My neighbors are not as good as me. And, I'm doing my bit, but what's everybody else doing? Ha, ha, ha. And then when it came to, would you give up meat? Would you give up flying to Ibiza? Well, that's not my problem. So really in the end, there's a lot of compromise going on in the end and things to do. But one of the things that I'm very positive about is the banks, is the money again. The government's promised a lot of crap, and I hope COP26 is not as bad as everybody says. We've still got a chance. But the key is the banks. If the banks, and a lot of banks say, I'm not giving your company any money unless you've got a sustainable credential for the future. So all the investment today, technology investment, is going into, a lot of it's going into green. Apart from health, apart from cars, it's really about climate, solving climate. So impossible dreams we had are really, really changing. And our understanding of nature is changing. So, I talked about all this sort of, first of all, government, we're cleaning up our cities. So all those empty department stores, so they're closing. And we're going to have bird sanctuaries and, I don't know, trees in your street. I don't know, but everybody's sort of cleaning up, and Amsterdam's going to have the donut, and Champs-Élysées will be a park, and all the rest. So we've got this whole green thing. But what's interesting, the green thing is moving from this sort of, pretty cottage core, my cottage country, into this very, very goblin core, which I find very, very exciting. And as you know, in fashion, we need a new word. So the current word, we moved from sustainable, because everybody got bored with it, into regenerate. This has been the word for the last 18 months.
It worked well with color as well. Regenerated colors. That's what we're all doing. We're using recycled products, recycled materials, and they're going to look different from virgin materials, obviously.
It's a new level of color coming, which people, which the younger generation will be much more interested in. And of course, the big thing at the moment has been mushrooms. From the books and Stella McCartney's collection and all the mushroom story. So what we've got in colour is this moving from the lovely, pretty maple leaf russets and forest greens and pine greens into this kind of very sludgy, slimy colours. Mm-hmm. And everybody's talking about this very special shade of green, which is kind of really, really sort of grey, dark green, a kind of seaweed green. And I'm talking a lot about brown. Really, I feel brown. I just see a whole palette of browns. Really black, soggy, muddy, bloody earth brown. And then parallel to that, we've got this slimy, goozy green. It's a bit sort of seaweedy green, but very intense dark green. So they're really low impact Pantone 448C. That was seen as the ugliest color in the world. It's now been used for nail varnish. And
I never thought it was ugly.
But it's very in now. It's like the color of the moment. And if you look at all the new cocktails, look, I mean, they're all sludgy browns. They're really sort of, mudslide. And the film Dune was fantastic. The color palette of Dune was just about muddy browns and desert sands. And it was absolutely incredible. And that's what I really feel is going on. And you can see it in all the collections, blotch, leather, and all the rest of it. So really a palette of true nature. Very, very slimy. And I think that's a very important direction. And with that goes all the materiality of it. There's all those textures which are sort of very crinkled and rugged and all the rest of it. That's very, very important.
Natural, organic, feel like, yeah.
No, but not prettier. One of the things I feel very important about is we're seeing at the moment a lot of design, plant imprints, natural dyeing. It's all made. It's not us imposing design on a cloth or color on a cloth. It's nature imposing it on it. So you've got to think about just leaving the fabric out, and it gets muddy and dirty and stained and all that. Don't forget this: we're polarized. So what left is doing is what the right is doing, and you've got the change the world utopia on one side, and let's get back to how it was on the other side. Get me the pizzas and the Ibiza and all the rest of it. So you're not going to stop that. And what I say here appeals to another audience. So it's a bit of a drip drought. It's going to start with the 5%, the 7%, because it's not going to appeal to all Gen Z, as I said, because a lot of them are shopping Shein, so whatever they say. So it's limited appeal, but I'm just taking you into where I think the new feeling of colour will be. So it's really kind of murky and intense. I think it's beautiful. I mean, using these browns in what would be a classically sporty, fluid jersey T-shirt, makes it look very, very new, So we're bringing these colours into technical areas really solidifies this hybridization of science and nature, which we've been talking about for so long. Suddenly I've got these really goblin colors, but they're in very high-tech end uses.
Yeah. I love this dark cacti greens.
Gorgeous.
Brown.
Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me, Judith?
Oh, I've painted my house brown.
Funny in me.
In the second lockdown, I've painted one of my most important wall in a dark chocolate brown, which was my nesting, obviously, or my comfort. But I still absolutely love it. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's way too dark. You can't do that." And I'm like, wait and see. I know everybody's been talking about this, but can you tell us a little bit about where you think color choices and preferences are going with the metaverse coming on? How is that going to influence our color world? Because it will. Whether it's more freedom, are we going to be able to live with that freedom as designers? Less restrictions?
I think I've been writing a lot. Everybody's been talking about it. Everybody's been writing about it. And again, there are a lot of mixed opinions about it. For something that hasn't quite happened yet, everybody's got an opinion about it. And I don't know, you're not old like me, but I remember Second Life in 2002. And we were all jumping up and down, and people like Preen and Gap were taking spaces on Second Life, and we're all going to Second Life, and all the rest of it. And it didn't happen. But this time, I fundamentally believe that this will happen because we're talking of different generations. 20 years ago, we were talking about boomers, and boomers were definitely 1 foot in the material. 2 feet in the material and 1 toe in the immaterial. But this generation is completely different and lives in digital format, half their time. So it's not a step for them. It's, they're able to slip from one to the other. So I think the metaverse will definitely happen. And there's been a lot of money thrown at it. And of course, it all starts, let's get straight. The colors of the metaverse. Where does the metaverse start? And it starts with gaming. We're in a moment, in COVID, reinforced the whole gaming culture, electronic sports and getting women into it. But everybody was into gaming. And no matter what Facebook and whatever the Chinese government says about it, gaming will be what the telephone was in the first decade of the new century. Gaming will be our way of discussing marketing, social platforming, health, whatever it is. So gaming will become very strong. And of course, fashion and color has already made its place. Avatars and skins. It's a $36 billion market, $40 billion market already. So what are we talking about, Dave? Do you know what's going on? Straight to avatar designing and all the sort of new clothing brands and looking to gaming heroes. I mean, Kyle Berger-Giesdorf has now been sort of champion of Fortnite. Is being taken by Hollister. To help with the clothing. So gaming is it, and then we've got the whole NFT story. We cannot move for non-fungible tokens. Everybody from Sanctum Television, the art world, all the luxury brands are doing, special brandies for NFT, very elitist talking. And of course, all those virtual garments, which you never wear in sneakers, which are all NFT linked. And of course, with this virtual dressing, the further advances we make in haptic touch, which is already going on in a big way, the more sexy the virtual becomes. And I loved the whole Balmain Barbie story, because one thing was to do the Barbie story, but they did a whole thing of NFTs on the Barbie dolls. And you put the Barbie dolls with the Gucci cars from the remake of the Gucci story. I think toys are going to be the new fashion accessory, not the handbags, but what toy have you got with you? The whole thing is definitely going there, and progress is made. Really, it's not there yet, but augmented reality, we're getting there, and teleportation, and already major companies are redesigning retail, redesigning factories, building stadiums, even using a virtual world to test everything out. Now, the question is, what are people going to wear on the metaverse? See, I've been asked to give a speech for a company. I got to give it as an avatar. And I'm sitting to myself and I'm going, wow, what kind of avatar would I want to be? And I haven't decided yet. So have you got any suggestions? what what colors should I wear? So one of the questions is, one thing is to live in this metaverse and create fantasy and all the rest of it around us, but how do we represent ourselves in that? And it's very interesting because when Mark Zuckerberg launched Meta and the metaverse, he was wearing all black. So he looked really like the normal Mark Zuckerberg. He didn't look like anything. He looked really boring, actually. And if you look at who this metaverse appeals to first, you're talking to the same bunch of people who love streetwear. Very crypto punk, in its beginning. So it's a little bit rebellious and all the rest of it. So I see a lot of, in the first status, a lot of color following the dystopian punkish feeling about color, which is not necessarily just black, but also very sort of sharp use of color with black. So that's where I think the universe will start. And then the question is, everybody's piling into it now. All these retail brands are piling into it. Dress X, I don't know, 1,000 digital garments from Dress X, which you can use for your avatars and dress yourself. So suddenly all retail, from Zara to Hennes and Mauritz to
Balenciaga,
are all doing digital fashion wardrobes, which can cost you from $30 to $12 for the Gucci shoe to $1,000 if you're doing couture. So suddenly you've got the same confusion of choice that you had in the real world. And at the same time, I'm thinking, well, the metaverse, it comes from gaming, so it's been a bit of a fun element there. So wouldn't I, if I'm that, would I want to be like dressing in dark blue as usual, or shall I do something witty and not
more fun?
A bit more fun. So you've got this whole thing, people like really dressing up in a really crazy way. There's a big tribe of people who think we'll just be ourselves. And the others are saying, no, this is the chance to really
be who you want to be.
Listen, God, I'm so short. I'm going to be blonde and 6'6".
Right.
I don't know.
I want to have those big black curls. That's who I'd be.
What is interesting, back to your question about the color, everybody jumped in the beginning saying, this is going to be all about, very, very
bright neon.
It's going to be about the neons. It's going to be a lot of mauve and purple and pink and sharp blues and colors and all the rest of it, with a lot of bit of metallics flashing and all this kind of story. But people like the Fabricant and the rest of it, they promoted another palette of colors. And there's a whole feeling of mid-tone pastel-y hues. So what I'm saying is the metaverse, it's very quick for us to get into the gaming, LED lighting, color concept.
Luminous, yeah.
But really, a lot of people are looking at color in a much more, and if you look at the Fabricant and what they propose, and they're much more beautiful, softer mid-tone colors, toned down. And don't forget, pastels are a very important color group, and they are the color group of this decade, pastels. But I think the metaverse will expand into a major field of color. Really open mind about palettes. Let's not get stuck there. There's really a scope for a lot of things.
I've seen some nostalgic, dreamlike colors as well being used, even some vintage retro style. I think just about anything can happen in the metaverse, right?
Don't forget, we're in a whole period of nostalgia. Whatever the age group, everybody's looking at vintage 90s, 70s games. All that kind of coloring is coming back. So the same will be about color, although it will start in the obvious area. Sorry,
David, I've got one last question for you. What is the future of color? Independently from its industry, will it keep its importance?
Listen, 80% or 90% of choices made by people are based on color. And I think our understanding of color, we are just like technology, like quantum mechanics. We are just at the verge of understanding how many colors there are. And digitalization and all these things we're going to go through in the progress of science and moving forward, because we will not, however nostalgic we are, and whatever reason we are nostalgic, we will be discovering new colors all the time. We choose because of color. Color is our personal flags. People dress color. They want to, that's who I am. It's self-expression. It's identity in terms of branding. And we're just at the verge of exciting new color ways of using color, of seeing color, of being color,
We are, indeed, what I always say, you never stop learning. Generally in life, But color is just, it's like an everyday lesson again. And I think that's just a message, but I wanted to reconfirm with you as well. Yeah.
I think the nice thing about, first of all, there have been periods when we were non-color. I remember in the 90s, we were all beige, gray, white, and black. It was a non-color period. It was all the less is more. And I remember we were seeing the shock of color again in Tokyo in the Prada store. What? Yeah. So we do have periods of non-color. The other thing is that people want a better understanding of things. People we took color for granted. Now we're looking into where does color come from? How is it made? How do we use it? There was this whole period and there was a whole period in education. People really didn't know when color came back how to mix colors.
Yeah.
It was like thrown out, color, just take it for granted. Now there's a real, from the psychology, mindful, emotional point of view, and then from the pragmatic commercial, branding, signaling point of view,
Interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
Never-ending story.
It is actually. Good luck with everything. I hope people find it interesting. Hello out there.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Judith. See you soon, love.
So this was Judith Van Vliet from the Color Authority. Thank you for listening again to yet another episode. If you haven't done so, please go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, review, and send us feedback on this episode. And I hope that you will be listening to the next episode coming out very, very soon. Thank you and have an amazing, colorful day.